Hello everyone, welcome to Weekly Manga Recap, Super Not Spooky at All edition,
Not spooky.
October 12th, 2022. There's nothing spooky is going on.
Nothing spooky.
Just a normal, we're taking a Halloween recommendation, and that's it. No spooky things will happen at all tonight.
Yeah.
For those of you who have nervous compositions.
Yes, I don't know why.
Constitutions. I don't know why I say composition. Constitution.
Maybe your writing's kind of nervous too. Your composition. It's a little scratchy. You're like, oh, I hope someone doesn't find this in a horror video game, like atmospheric design. I had a moment. I do have a moment of terror, Nick, to tell you about.
Of terror?
Not my terror. Somebody else's terror, though. I was walking through the grocery store. And if you don't know, on the East Coast, I don't know if they have them down in Florida, but there's a chain of grocery stores called like Giant or Martin's or Giant Eagle. I think they go by all those names, but it's like one.
Okay.
It's one collective company, and they are known for having this robot. It's called Marty the Robot in all their stores, and it's basically just a long pillar that rolls around the grocery store and like doesn't clean up anything. It just like rolls around, but they put googly eyes on it to like make it friendly, because otherwise it's horrifying. Well, you just turn a corner and you're like burp burp.
I've seen that in a Walmart before, but I think it was actually cleaning something. So
yeah, I think this one can lightly scrub the floors, but like one of its main purposes is also to like alert if there's a spill, and it can't clean that. It's just to tell like a human like water's on the floor. Like this is really just one step to like robot master lord status. They start in middle management at grocery stores. But I was at the grocery store, and I'm a trans woman walking down the aisle, and a robot is passing me, and I saw an old woman who is clearly not from this day and age, who's on one side surrounded by a trans woman, on the other side a robot, and the look on her face, and she's like, "This
is happening."
She's like,
just like Glenn Beck said it would.
She's like, the future is here, and I'm not ready for it. I hope she's doing great.
And that's the scariest thing of all.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's the true terror.
The inevitable march of progress.
Ooh, hold on, wait. Ooh. Got it.
Okay.
All right, now we can talk about manga, Nick.
Yes, and I believe that we will begin with the first recommendation that we took for this year's Halloween month. Wonderful tradition here at Weekly Manga Recap that I regret more and more every year because the Spookmaster General keeps coming out.
Oh, what?
This shouldn't be a surprise to you.
It feels hurtful and targeted. The Spookmaster General was fond of you.
That's fine.
Spookmaster General isn't even wearing their cape. They're coming in with just a hat today.
That's true.
Also, it was asked, this is a lore question, and I want to address it. There was a question of what the Spookmaster General's pronouns are. All of them, however, the Spookmaster General also calls them boo nouns, so please respect that, if nothing else.
They don't seem to mind if you ask what their pronouns are, but they do get offended if you don't use the word.
Again, any pronoun's fine, but you got to call them boo nouns. If anything else... And that's you haven't hurt me, but I'm sad. That's really where it is.
Gotcha. Anyway, the manga that we took as recommendation this time is called Hōzuki Island, or Hōzuki no Shima. This is a series by Kei Sanbei that was written before, I believe, the last series that we covered by them. Which was the Cradle of Monsters, which we covered is like, I don't know, the third recommendation, maybe in Weekly Manga
Oh,
Recap,
wait, was that
something like that.
that's different from Cage of Eden?
I don't even remember anymore. Cage of Eden, Grandma. I don't know. I can't remember anymore. Honestly,
What was the name of the manga?
Keisanbe, Keisanbe. I might be getting it confused, but I don't know if I am, because there is a particular running trend between these series that seems like it's not coincidental. So
I'm having trouble finding anything that's not a recent series, but you're probably correct.
so this series was written in like 2007, 2008. Follows a group of kids who are attending this island school that they've all been sent to because they come from troubled family situations. The protagonist, Kokoro, he and his little sister Yume were just like abandoned by their mom, and they just have to look out for each other. So Kokoro's like 10, and he's got to look out for his like 6-year-old blind sister. And they get to this island, and they are immediately told by some of the other kids that the adults that are running the school can't be trusted, and there's something going on. They think that like they're murdering the kids, and they've found like all these little hints of something nefarious having gone on, like blood stains in the desk in Kokoro's room, which when the blood, right after he discovers the blood stains, one of the teachers replaces the desk to cover it up, maybe.
Oh no.
And so is there something going on at the island? Is there some sort of conspiracy? Are they killing the kids for insurance money? Are they trying to find gold on this island? Or is one of the teachers just a horrible monster and the others are just kind of misunderstood because the kids are paranoid?
It is a very interesting horror manga because it is horror told from the perspective of children. That almost feels like it's written for children as well, because it's very pro kid. It's very like adults will lie to you and deceive you, and they don't trust you. And it's like,
that's the one that Cradle of Monsters was. Cradle of Monsters was the shipwreck one. Okay.
Yeah. And it's like, hey, there's also not a lot of gore in this manga, and spoilers, none of the kids actually die. So you're like, oh, it's like a manga written for kids. But then you get to the end, you're like, except 2 people wouldn't have died if these kids weren't fucking idiots. Well, maybe the one teacher would have died, because I guess the shithead teacher was always planning to fuck up that thing, and it was kind of an accident. But, like, the headmaster definitely died because these kids were just like, no, you're monsters, you're going to kill us. Like, also, in complete fairness, these teachers cannot stop doing things the most insidious ways, where they're just like, come back with me, holding, like, a knife. And internally they're apparently saying like, please, I must protect you, come home, your friends are all actually safe, I'll let you see them. But instead it's just like, get over here now.
Like, there's a moment where one of the kids is cornered by the headmaster of the school, and he's like, you need to come with me or else you may also suffer an accident.
Yeah, like,
when in actuality, he's saying, if you don't come over here, it's not safe, and you might suffer an accident. I've seen it happen before. But he's like, you will suffer an accident!
It's almost like a sketch. Like, somebody was like, it's funny. Like, these teachers are actually looking out for the best futures for these kids, but they can't help but do it in the most creepy, villainous ways possible.
Yeah,
it's like, you need to have a bit more vegetables with your meal. You're like, ooh, have your vegetables or you will be dead soon. Like, wait, what?
If you don't listen to me, you might suffer a horrible fate. Ill constitution, because your colon won't be able to handle your horrible shits, and that's no fun. You really should, eat your vegetables and listen to me, listen to your teachers, or you'll die. And that's really, spoilers. What's going on is that there is just a misunderstanding going on with the kids, and things are built up in a way that at times is kind of interesting. Because each of the children comes from, a bad family situation of some sort, a lot of them have these different traumas that they're working through, based on, that originate from a sense of abandonment, or the fact that they were abused by their parents. In one case, was nearly murdered by his mother, who was trying to commit murder-suicide. One of them straight up has been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and is a compulsive liar, who just makes up stories in order to protect his own ego, essentially. And so all this is going on, and it's been laid out. It gets laid out early on, and so it's sort of meant to inject into your mind, like, okay, all these kids are discovering these things that, yes, do seem suspicious, and so maybe there is something going on at the island. But if the kids are, in a lot of cases, suffering from delusions of some sort, then how much of this is really going on, and how much of it is in their heads? And Kokoro, the main character, seems to have the mildest case of it of any of them, but he's just a kid, and he's being led along by these much more charismatic people who do seem to have misconceived what is going on around them, and now they're misleading him, and he just follows their lead because, that's what kids do. They kind of follow the leader.
Yes.
So that's an interesting setup, potentially. But one of the teachers is just the most straightforward, transparent, horrible monster who literally, at any conceivable moment where he is alone with a even slightly sexually mature woman, will try to rape them. It is something that happens constantly throughout this series, and it's a problem because clearly it's done in a way that is meant to kind of get that slasher movie, oh, the woman is nude kind of titillation going, when it's really just kind of gross and bad.
We need to stress, by the way, there's a specific thing in reference to what you said. There's one adult woman in this entire series. The other two female characters are like, I don't know, maybe like second grade, and then I think fifth grade, but she might be fourth grade. So this is sort of the like catch-all to this series to really bring up. There's a lot of like weird like nudity / like sexual situations that like active children are involved with in various ways. Like there's a lot of weird nudity, there's a lot of shots that are like just very gross in concept, when you're just like, this is like a fifth grader, why are you doing this so frequently? And like part of it, you're like, oh, like I feel like the weirdo's defense would just be like, oh, well, it's all to make the bad guy look bad because he wants to do that to a fifth. But it's like, there's a shot where she like picks out a swimsuit wedgie that doesn't have anything to do with anybody. It's just a weird shot in the story. So that's like a big disclaimer I feel like I need to like put on Front Street for this story, where like, even though I don't think I'm going to say too much that's going to make you want to read this, I want that to be very clear. Like there's some weird stuff going on with the kids in this story that should be known.
Yeah, I'm not going to walk away from this story like with super negative thoughts, but I would have at the very least said like, oh, it's harmless enough, if not for the fact that there are just an insurmountable number of male gaze shots that are clearly sexualizing, like you said, a girl who's maybe 10, and that's being generous. And there are also ways to villainize a character than just like, oh, and then he tries to rape a girl, in a way that conveniently allows me to draw the victim of his assault in a way that will help me to, throw in some more, fan service into this series, which is about children in danger and doesn't need it.
To be clear, this guy already kicks a dog later on in the story. It's not like we had to work hard to make this guy detestable, okay? Like, his first real interaction to us as an audience is him attempting to hit on the one female teacher in the school, her rebuking his advances, and him being a weird creep about it. So that's all you really needed to do to establish this guy was a no bueno fuckface. But the manga really hammers in, like, yes, he is a super creepy dude who just, he doesn't die, and it is almost hysterical, like how much cartoonish damage he will take throughout this manga and somehow still not die. Since like this is a relatively short series, if you don't want to have anything more spoiled for you, I guess stop here and read it. Although again, I wouldn't recommend it. But like in a series that says that most characters live except for two of the teachers, the idea that he survives being dropped off a cliff and not like lands in an ocean how like one of the kids does and then survives, fucking lands in like trees, like tree branches, like his arms fucking shattered, his back has to be broken. There's no way his back is not shattered into fucking fragments and just torn apart. And yet at the end he still comes up for one last scare of like, I got you, and you're like, I'm sorry. Well, and then he still gets his head like fucking caved in. And then there's like a note that's like, he's serving a prison sentence. And you're like, how did this motherfucker survive this island?
Did you catch how long his prison sentence was, too?
I don't think I barely paid attention to it.
It was like 13 years for like multiple counts of attempted murder and attempted sexual assault. There's a, oh, well, you know, it's attempted. He didn't successfully kill or sexually assault anyone. So we'll just, you know,
he tried. He said, we're going to put a loser in jail for life. He tried and failed. Come on, guys. Hasn't he suffered enough? Dude kicked a dog and lost. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. Hasn't he taken enough walks in his life?
There is also an element of the supernatural that is at work in the story, because at various points through the series when one of the kids is in some form of a bind, this ghostly image of a young girl with pale hair will appear to them and will just kind of like silently point them in the direction they need to go in order to solve their problem. Like in one case, they're in the woods because they're trying to escape from the island and get away from the adults, but they've run out of food. So one of them goes off desperately trying to scrounge for food, and she appears and points to where he can find some fruit that will feed them, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then they say, okay, we're all just under a collective form of delusion. We've all got it in our heads that there's this ghost here that's helping us, when really we're actually helping ourselves, and our subconsciouses are collectively imagining this girl who's appearing to help us. And like one of the kids somehow like has like a psych degree or something like that, because he breaks down. He's like, oh, well, you see,
super genius. That's like his special thing. Is they're like, he has an IQ of 150. He's a fucking super smart guy.
Which also, by the way, IQ is bullshit. But also, having an IQ of 150 when you're a child means that he's as smart as a 15-year-old. Like it's not impressive at all.
No, Nick, he's like fucking Norman and Emma from Promised Neverland, like super genius. He's so cool.
That's essentially how he is portrayed at a lot of points. It's like he's just like he's super ahead of everyone and figures everything out. But he does straightforwardly conclude like, okay, well, describe how this girl looks beyond just like the small details of like, oh, this kind of ghostly pale-haired girl. Then everyone's like, oh, she's wearing this thing. No, she's wearing this thing. And so then he concludes like, okay, so see, we just have this suggestion that our minds are filling in the gaps when really we're just kind of helping ourselves and stuff. But then after they realize this, the ghost continues to appear to them, and it turns out that the person who did die on the island a long time ago, it wasn't like a murder victim or something. It was someone who suffered from a horrible accident, and that's what founded the school, was the insurance payout for it. And that's why all the kids have the insurance policy on them. It's just in case the worst should happen, then everyone else will be looked after because of it. And so the school was like founded in her honor, but also they cover up all of the problems that led to her. And they just like, no, we just stay away from there. There's horrible accidents that will happen, but we'll just do very poor security measures in order to keep children from going into this abandoned place where the buildings are crumbling and there are a billion places they get locked and trapped inside of places they'll fill up with water and drown you. It's fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah. It's just... It's weird because the series will start off on the mystery and like you get very quickly dropped into the suspense of this series. It's like the first chapter is like the kids being like, hey dude, don't trust the adults here. They're all trying to kill us basically. And then it like starts them trying to like figure out how to survive in this place and, you know, mysterious stuff happening. And then like as the series goes along, and again, this is not a particularly long series. I think it was like 27 chapters, something like that. Essentially like 3 volumes or something like that. Like halfway through, it's like, hey, maybe things aren't exactly as they seem. And it just kind of like abruptly has to continue with it. Like everyone just has to continue acting though. Like, I mean, this is, hey, if we get caught by the one teacher, she'll definitely kill us. Even though she has opportunities to talk to the kids and doesn't just say like, please, like, I guess because they're like, oh, well, she's going to assume that the kids are evil because they killed somebody. So she's worried about, she's not trusting them. And then like very abruptly, like 3 chapters at the end, it's like, no, everything was actually just like completely on the up and up. The only real bad
It's all a misunderstanding. Yeah. And everyone is safe and fine. The bad teacher went to jail. Nobody died except the 2 teachers, but nobody died. Not even the kids that got like taken away that they thought had been taken away to be murdered.
My favorite fucking part of this series. The reason like all this is happening is because like when this new kid and his little sister show up, the one guy who's supposed like a pathological liar is like, hey, we need to let you know a kid that was just here was mysteriously hurt in an accident and disappeared. They absolutely killed him for the insurance money. I totally know that happened. And like they're like, it happens again then to that kid. And you're like, oh no, they're killing off these kids. And then like at the end, like the last chapter or the second to last chapter, they get back to the school and the 2 kids are like, hi. And you're just like, I feel like if the way it should have been shot would have been, they show up at like the school and those kids are like, at least the liar one should have been like looking super nervous. He's like, so he's fine. You guys did not do anything, right? Because it turns out Jimmy was actually in the hospital for legit reasons. Hey, where's all the teachers?
Oh, wow. Wow, you guys are scary.
And then it follows that moment with like a flash forward chapter where like the kids are now all grown up. And they're like going back to the school, and it's like all the memories.
And the fat kid's even fatter.
I have a problem with that. I want to get to in a second. But like they get back to the school, and all of the kids are just like, "Yeah, remember all the memories we have here?" And like I keep looking over to the one kid, like, "I don't know you. You weren't there for these adventures."
What are you talking about? I was there in the flashbacks you had along the way.
But then it turns out he's the one for a lot of the mysterious things go. Like, there's so many, like, weird things they have to explain. Like, I've heard singing in the island. Like, oh, it turns out it's the girl who's mute has been kind of unconsciously singing when she's been all alone. And they're like, well, there's a room with all these bloody messages in it. Like, no, it's this kid who basically needed medicine that just kind of went off it and, you know, started freaking out in this room. And it was, like, again, the adults are actually trying to be responsible about it. It's all very silly.
Yes.
And you're just like, sure, I guess. Like it's very like retroactive, like not retroactive. I'm sure all of it was planned, but it just feels like very retroactive. Like, and then this was something we set up to be scary, but it's not. But the fat kid whose name I don't remember. Unfortunately, I don't remember any character's name in this series. But every character,
Fudoshi, I think.
Fudoshi sounds about right. But every character is sort of defined by one thing, like smart guy, blind girl, mute girl, fat kid, liar guy, other dude, main character guy, who I guess bug guy. I don't know. His whole thing is like he experienced a lot of trauma as a child and eating became his coping mechanism. So he just eats all the time. And it's like an active compulsion and like addiction. Like it's like a little thing that if someone tries to take the food from him, he'll actually start to have like a panic attack and like scream and stuff like that, which is treated as a weird joke, but whatever. I shouldn't say whatever, not cool, but there's like, the whole thing is a lot about these kids kind of overcoming their trauma essentially. And there's a scene where he's alone with the main character's little sister, and he sees one of the teachers coming, and he has this big backpack full of food that everyone's made fun of him for, and he leaves the backpack behind. He takes the little sister instead because he's like he's felt so bad about himself. He feels like he's this weight on the team and everything like that, and he prioritizes the life of someone else over this food and everything like that. And it's supposed to be like this very powerful moment because he did save this girl. And he doesn't go back for the food, and they note later like, thank God you didn't, because someone was watching it. If you would come back, like you would have gotten caught. Although we would have found out later, I guess that wouldn't probably have been that bad of a thing. It actually might have saved someone's life. Who knows? Anyway,
yeah, good job fucking up.
But like, hey, he's overcome his trauma and everything like that, and he still has an issue with like he needs to eat, but he's like going out and foraging. It's not an all time thing, and you're like, all right. Clearly it's meant to be like maybe like a step for recovery and all these things, and then like they do the flash forward and he's still like just an overweight character, and they just comment on his weight a lot, and I'm like, well, that look, I'm not saying he has to lose the weight, like, but it doesn't feel like he has any ownership.
Everyone's really dismissive of it too. They're really jokey about it. It's like, oh, because they're making a joke like, oh man, the place seems so much smaller. You know, the ceilings are so much lower than I remember. It's like, oh, it's because we all got taller. Oh man, the hallway seems so much narrower. It's because you got so much fatter, Fudoshi. Ha 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 ha.
It feels
you fuck off.
It feels like he got no ownership of it or anything like that. That like what happened is, I don't know. It's just like a weird, stupid thing that's annoying. But it is there. So fun times. And I don't know if there's much more we can milk out of this discussion. There's a dog. I don't understand the dog. There was like a dog that like cosmically got attacked in like a particular way that makes it aggressive towards some people, but not aggressive towards others.
They carry sticks.
Yeah, and I
carry sticks.
I think the dog was responsible for killing the old man accidentally. I can't tell. I thought they said the dog might have been there. It was very hard to tell what happens in that scene because, like, the ghost tells the smart kid to put down the stick, and he does. And then the dog attacks the old man because he had a stick, I thought. I might have been misremembering that entire scene. But I think the dog is the true killer of this story, and I want that to be understood.
So there is the ghost that helps them and also a ghost that kills them.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. I would say, just to wrap this discussion up, if you are looking for a short horror series, you should not read this one. It is a short horror series. I just don't think this is particularly good. I don't find it particularly scary. As I said, it's got a lot of uncomfortable themes that I just don't think. Like, I feel like if you're listening to this podcast at this point in time, you've reached a point where you also probably agree with us. You're like, yeah, I'd really prefer less like naked children in my media that I consume, please. That doesn't seem like it should be an unreasonable ask. And this series, unfortunately, has a lot of issues with that. So, and even if I were to strip that all away and be like, hey, what is it like beyond that? I'd be like, it's still not good. Like, this is not like a compelling story. It's maybe harmless, but yeah, I think the fact that there's a lot of detracting factors enough for me to be like, just skip this. There's better ways to experience like horrific stories in a short amount of time.
Yeah. If it were free of those gross elements, I would say it's like a kind of poor man's early Promised Neverland, which, you know, is like, okay, kids can't trust adults that are looking after them. They've got to find a way to escape. There's some mysterious stuff going on. There's a sense of paranoia. It's not as tightly written as that part of the Promised Neverland. The characters are less compelling. The art's not as good. You know, it's you know, like kind of like a notch below in basically every single category that you could note, except it doesn't overstay its welcome. That's the one positive thing I can say for it, is that this series is exactly the right length.
It gets in and out.
But I yeah, for the reasons that we've been over pretty exhaustively, I can't recommend it. So that's gonna be it for me.
All right, let's start talking about a good series, a good manga, Nick.
Okay, I don't really care too much for this chapter of My Hero though. So it's My Hero Academia number 369, a chain of events across the ages. So things start off with a flashback to when All for One was dealing with one of the holders of One for All, who had a quirk that could manipulate the momentum of small objects. But now it only work. But now it works on stuff beyond that, and All for One is pissed about that because that kind of ability was not supposed to be so powerful. It's not supposed to be this strong like it is now, and now Deku is using Gear Shift to kick his ass, when before Gear Shift could only, like, stop bullets. Oh man, what a worthless ability. Stopping bullets.
That sucks.
And most of the chapter is just Deku kicks ass. Like,
Yes.
that's just like the entire chapter. He utilizes his different combinations of quirks from the different wielders, using them in all in a long chain of abilities. There's some cool art of him just smashing, while Shigaraki All for One gets more and more pissed off.
Botnik! Don't you mean Shigaraki?
I'll give you that one.
Whoa!
I was trying to guess what you were going to say, and I didn't guess right. So
There you go. Boom. You can't never know where I'm coming from. Remember, the Spookmaster General's powers get stronger the closer we get to Halloween.
That's right.
Until usually they cosmically go backwards in the last week when I've run out of good material.
There's a lot of ass kicking. There's a cool image that looks like it could have been the cover of a chapter of Deku charging forward while all the different former wielders are all framed behind him.
It's like a big explanation too about how he's using basically all of their powers in sync to do this super awesome cool mega attack.
Right, and how One for All is also making all of them more powerful as well. He charges in and he says, "Hey, All for One, you don't get to hurt anyone else." And he launches forward in this massive attack that sends literally body parts everywhere as the fingers surrounding Shigaraki's body go flying off and are broken apart. And he's basically just this one-armed, caved-in chest guy falling through the air. And also, they're resonating together. The quirks are resonating with each other, and the original One for All can see his brother within the body of Shigaraki, and so now Deku has his opening. Can he seize this chance to save the day and save Shigaraki from within himself? Not if All for One can be pissed off about something. And he's like, "Oh, I'm not done yet. This whole sequence of events has led to this moment," and a bunch of starry shimmers come up out of his body. As Aizawa was like, "What? Is there another trick?" And Shigaraki All for One thinks, "Not yet. Indeed, Yoichi. The entire chain of events up to now will inevitably spell out victory or defeat for all. Victory is still within my grasp." And we cut over to Spinner.
Spinner looking really intense, like not like Spinner usually does.
No, he needs to calm down and play some games.
I wish he does. I don't feel like things are going to work out for Spinner. I'm worried about him.
Yeah, I can understand that. League of Villains has had some people keep on dropping off and dying, so yeah, that could happen.
I think the chapter was cool. Like I do love Deku just smashing face, quite literally, just fucking going to town. It's again one of those moments. I guess I've become very exhausted of My Hero, that anytime anyone does any hero does anything remotely, I'm like, yes, the conclusion. I like this. Knowing full well there's no way this is the end of it, but this was a chapter which I was
You weren't expecting another false finish.
This was a chapter where I was like, yes, all wrapped up in a very satisfying conclusion. Good job, Deku. And then you're like, no, there's no narrative way that we're done yet, but still, there was a small part of me that liked to hope.
Yeah, I mean, that's about it. It was kind of fun to read. It was nice to see Deku kicking ass. That's it, though. Don't really have a lot to discuss beyond that.
Yes. Let's talk about Undead Unluck, though, Nick. This is number 130. It's for your own good. So last time we left off...
What, reading it? Reading this? Is that... Oh, the chapter title. Okay.
Well, this is actually... the CDC, I believe, actually came out and said that this actually does count as vitamins. So if you read Undead Unluck,
Reading Undead.
yeah, you don't need potassium anymore. If you were that kid in fucking Honey, I Shrunk the Kids who starts having like a panic attack, or the I Shrunk the Parents or whatever, he starts having that panic attack or whatever, he needs fucking bananas because that's the only thing that had potassium in it. That's how I learned bananas had potassium. You don't actually need to anymore. You just show them Undead Unluck.
Oh my god, you just made a big reference to the third movie in the series.
I think that might be the only one I've ever seen too. I know I saw it in school, and that's the only thing I remember is like the parents are all shrunk, so like they can't tell it, but they're like, what they mentioned it earlier in the movie, like bananas have a lot of potassium.
Schrodinger's fruit.
Schrodinger's banana.
That's not even the term. It's what's the
Chekhov's banana.
Chekhov's banana. The banana both does and does not exist. Until there is a plot point that requires that a kid needs potassium.
Schrodinger's Chekhov's banana. There you go. I love it. Damn, if only there wasn't already an episode title. So last time, Juez has taken it upon herself to feed 400 billion years worth of pain into rebellion and is using it to stall and fight against Sun. So we see Victor kind of watching this happen, and he goes into a flashback of like when Juez was a member of the council, and I love that Victor at the time had like a cooking apron, like a barbecue apron on that says Undead X Unjustice on it, which is
just in case you had any doubts about the nature of their relationship. They had personalized couples aprons.
I'm like, why was he wearing it then? It's a very, because this is clearly supposed to be like, and a battle was about to happen because Juez is wearing this like huge giant armor, and she's like, what is all this? He's like, it's armor I made for you. She's like, yeah, but I can't move. And he's like, that's fine. You don't have to do any of that. Since I'm undead, I'll just go out there and do it. You just hang back here and give orders, basically. Like, leave the combat to me. And there's actually like a pretty funny scene of Juez being told like it's for your own good, and Juez just fucking shoots all of it off, and he's just like, hey, what the fuck? If you die, it's over. And she's just like, yeah, be that as it's may, I'm done having you protect me all the time. I want to fight with you. And
yeah, with the short hair and the expression, Juez actually kind of looks a lot like Foucault in that moment.
Yes.
So nice little parallel.
But she is holding the helmet that she was wearing at that time, and Victor does, like, as the flashback ends, he's like, oh, at least wear the helmet. And she's like, okay. So there we go, Nick. A backstory for why a character wore a particular piece of clothing. Not since the Marvel Cinematic Universe made an entire movie to explain why Black Widow had a vest on during Infinity War has a piece of clothing had such a compelling backstory.
I didn't even remember she was wearing a vest during Infinity War. So
it was one of those things where, like, at the end of it, Florence Pugh's character hands her the vest, is like, here, you'll wear this. And you're just like, I guess she did wear a vest in Infinity War.
And then something like falls out of the pocket and is like, what's this? Oh, it's this weird pair of golden dice.
Just every Disney-related franchise that needs like a piece of lore added to it. So Juez is just kicking ass right now. Like, her strike actually manages to push back God itself. It's fucking phenomenal. And Creed is now firing this cannon over and over again. It's like, oh, we'll find out why in a little bit. Nick, you won't guess why. We get more of the flashback, and it's sort of like further along in this adventure as Juez is like cradling presumably dead allies of theirs, and he's just like, none of you fucking get this. Why can't you just let me handle everything? You guys die, okay? Like, please just let me handle this. All you'd have to do is support me. Like, we don't need allies. The more people you add is just the more people you have to protect, and the more people you inevitably are going to lose. And Juez just like, no, everyone's help is necessary. And he's like, yeah, but those people are part of the reason you almost died out there. And she says, look, the mission is no longer ours alone. We can't defeat God without everyone's help. And one day, when we amass a party you approve of, that is when you will. And we cut to the present as she finishes that, and she shouts, cover me, Victor. And he says, yeah. And he uses his shield to block an energy blast. And we get some cool action. We find out that Creed is firing the cannon over and over again without it overheating because Phil is using his unfeel abilities on it. And this is far and away the most characterization this character has gotten, is that we know his power can like numb things that would like feel things, basically.
I mean, he doesn't ever fucking talk, so yeah.
It is kind of a cool ability. I do like how they're using it there, but they're using all these things. 3 minutes have basically passed, and Juez is just like, Victor isn't amazing. I pulled together some really amazing allies, and Victor is thinking like, Juez, it's for your own. He's thinking this like, it's for your own good that you die and that you just forget about me, so that you could finally live happily. All the sort of this motivation he's had all this time. And Juez is like, all right, 3 more minutes. I can hold out just a little bit longer if you give me the chance. In the next loop, you and I could once again, and her mask shatters off, and she just falls to the ground, lets go of the sword, and Victor's just staring as she hits the ground. Everyone's like, what the fuck? And Victor's just caught in his thought of like, you'll forget everything, you live a lifetime of happiness, it's for your own good that you die, essentially. Fuko's watching us, crying and screaming, and Victor, cradling Juez's dead body, just says, it was supposed to be for your own good. So what is this feeling of sadness and rage?
That last image of him is fucking scary as shit.
It definitely is. It's very well done.
All the shadows covering his face, the lines on like his neck and stuff, very, very intense.
I will say this is one of the few times, I guess, where digital has a hang up, because I don't know the exact ordering, but I assume you're meant to see the full page of Juez crying and then turn the page to that rage. And I feel that would be a more satisfying way of experiencing that, because every time I read this, I keep thinking it's supposed to be a 2-page spread, and you're like, no, it's 2 1-page spreads next to each other, basically. But it is still a very cool moment.
Yeah. It's a very cool chapter. This is a nice, I'm going to say end, because we know that it's not the end, because they're literally going into another time loop where everyone's going to come back to life. But it's a nice end for Juez, who, gets to go out on her own terms. It's sad, but, she does something that she's accomplishing, that she's wanted to do for a long time. And this is, it's, I guess in a way, like, it's the end of the character who's been fighting this battle the longest.
This is 450 billion years, essentially, worth of a mission finally coming to an end. It's Fuko's mission now, but this is her story. The Juez we'll see will be a different character.
Yeah. But Quinn, a few minutes ago, did I hear you say 3 minutes?
Oh no! That's when 3 minutes show up and beat me up. Like, oh no! I thought both of you were dead. Halloween, we can do whatever you want. Shot somehow, against all odds, Eric Bischoff's the surviving member of that unit.
God. That's
This is just to really stress that like God is unfair and cruel. Just like Undead Unluck says.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. All right. Then we're going to move on from there to Chainsaw Man, yes?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So last time in Chainsaw Man, while you and Austin were covering while I was not available, Yuko's the new host of the Justice Devil. Well, that's not good.
Don't worry, Nick. She says she's going to show up to the school and make all the bullies stop, so she's just got to talk to them and stuff, right?
Just talk to them nicely.
She said she just told her don't show up at school tomorrow. That means everything's going to be cool, right?
Yeah, she doesn't want, them to be bullying Asa while she's trying to talk to them, obviously. Also, a detail just to like reiterate the point, because it's not really going to come up naturally throughout the rest of this chapter, is that Yor thinks that Denji is Chainsaw Man because he said he was.
They're right.
They're right for the stupidest reason. All right. So, Asa has just learned that, oh shit, Yuko's going to go and kill a bunch of people at the school with the power of the Justice Devil. She's walking away from that.
But Nick, don't you mean Ghoulco?
Wouldn't that have but wouldn't that have worked better with just Buko than Gulko?
Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt.
Well, I can't argue with that. Okay, good point. So Asa is feeling depressed about this because she's like, this is like all my fault, isn't it? Because, you know, the contract with the Devils because of me. And Yor, such a great partner, Yor just says, yeah, she said that. So yeah, you're right. Asa, of course, is like, she's kind of in denial over like, how do you think she's going to go about getting rid of my bullying problem like she said she was going to? And Yor says, well, she wanted you to stay away from school, so I think you already know.
Yeah, I do love how the ghost has to be like, hey man, don't you know these memes? Like she shot you the hey, don't come into work tomorrow fucking text. Like, come on. I shouldn't have to explain this to you, right?
Yeah. So Asa's like, well, I've got to stop her then if she's gonna do that. And Yor says, well, how are you gonna do that? Well, I'm gonna go and talk her out of it. Go back and talk her out of it. How are you gonna do that when your body belongs to me? Ah, oh, that asshole! She took over Asa's body while she wasn't paying attention and is stopping her from doing a nice thing. And yeah, she says like, look, no, you're not gonna stop anything. Yuko's gonna go and kill people, and then we're gonna kill her at school tomorrow. Because our goal is to defeat Chainsaw Man, and he might show up if we fight Yuko's devil transformation, and even if he doesn't, we'll get into the Devil Hunter Club by killing the fucking devil that's made a contract with Yuko. Also, sidebar, they'll get a cool weapon because Yuko is like the closest person in the world to Asa right now. But
it would be a pretty sweet weapon.
Yeah, they don't go for that.
It'd be great if the War Devil's just the horse shit and like they do it and like she's just like, Asai, the most powerful weapon in all the land. You're like, that's what I get. Asai, I could have bought Asai. What are you talking about?
Pretty sure these are like some of the easier ninja weapons you could buy.
Yeah, I stab him. I get it.
There is a spooky scene of Yuko burning some stuff in her yard. Maybe it's bodies. I don't know. I can't tell. It's all on fire. But she promises that she's going to save Asa by killing all the bad guys, just like Chainsaw Man would. But she sets off for school. She's still limping because her leg is still messed up. And making a contract with the devil doesn't fix that right away, I guess. Yeah, she goes to school and she just, like, says hi to a few people as she's on her way. And on her way to class, she's going down the hallway, and Yoru stops her. And she's got I guess it's just a straight-up katana. It might be a wooden sword, but it looks like it's just a fucking katana, which is like, oh, good job getting one of those. I don't know where you just get a katana. So Yuko very quickly is like, oh yeah, I get why you're hunting me. And there is a very weird touch that happens as there's a shot on the next page that starts from outside of the school building looking through the window at Yuko, and then it gradually zooms into her as she's speaking and like laying out the situation. But the first panel, the word bubbles are covered up by the windows. It's an interesting choice. And I guess it just kind of like, I guess it's just to like pin home like you're zooming in on her, but it's like okay, it just like caught me off guard when I first read it, and I wanted to bring it up. But Yuko brings the point of like, hey, Chainsaw Man doesn't stop bullying; he just kills devils. So look, we'll fight later after I kill the bullies. But Yoru doesn't buy this. She says you're just gonna run away as soon as you kill your targets because the devil hunter is gonna show up if you take too long. So if you want to get me out of the way, you've got to beat me and kill me, even though that'd kill Asa too. And Yuko hesitates for a moment. And she says, I mean, I like Asa, but I hate you. And she transforms. The windows shatter around her, and she takes on the form of the Justice Devil. And she looks like a freaking alien now. So
she unfortunately looks very similar to the antagonist we're currently dealing with, the Kaiju number 8 as well. Like they're both like feminine
yeah,
brain monster lady things.
true that. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's pretty cool still. Yeah, I have no idea how to process like Chainsaw Man chapters most of the time because I've had like the dramatic whiplash of like, thank God Yuko's okay, to being like, someone needs to stop Yuko. And like,
pretty much.
I don't know where my head's at right now.
It's going to be a shorter break between chapters this time. We'll have one next week, apparently.
So, wacky.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, you want to know another series we never miss a week on? Eden Zero, that's right. Chapter 211 Tragedy. Everyone loves this series, Nick. It's her favorite. We get a cover page. It's like just a normal ass cover page, except for Happy kind of staring directly into the camera, which is a little nerving. But like otherwise, it's like a normal ass like picture that like is fine for a cover page. Good.
Gotta go check on Hero and be like, why haven't you put any of the female characters in some sort of bizarre fetishy pose?
Like it's
wrong,
it's weird. Rebecca is there and she's wearing like normal clothes for the situation. Like she's not in like a cowgirl bikini or something like that. You're like, what's happening? Why isn't like, oh, they're playing video games and every time Rebecca loses, she has to take off clothing or something like that? It's just like, oh, yeah. She can just live through life without being sexualized. How crazy. I say that and we cut to Urza in her underwear.
Yeah.
Who's sort of staring over the massacre of a scene that she sees before him, which I didn't realize like the end of the last like chapter that had this scene was supposed to have apparently like Benny Hill music playing on it, as we'll find out in just a moment. And it's kind of awesome. We cut to 10 minutes earlier. Urza's trying to escape. She's like, I can't get out of these fucking handcuffs. And then Jesse shows up and he's being kind of creepy. He's like, what a nice view, princess. And she's like, Jesse. And he's like, yeah, Justice told me to keep an eye on you. And he like kicks her in the head. And he's like, but he never said not to kill you. And he just starts hitting her. He's like, I want to see you suffer. I want to be a hero villain. So I want you to be miserable and sad and begging for your life, essentially. And he's essentially just like, look, I don't pretend you're worried about me or any shit like that. And she's like, no, I mean, Justice saved me. I want to return the favor. And Loki's like, fuck you. Justice wasn't saving you. He was only getting you ready so that he could watch all this stuff happen. And we're all really looking forward to like watching this happen. And she's like, why are you doing this? I treated you like family. I completely forgot Jesse was ever a part of her crew. I guess he was like the underground or the undercover agent. But he's just like, me, part of your family? Nah, let me tell you about my parents. Basically, your family sent them to war over all the shit that you did, basically, because we found out that Lendard had kind of like a brutal war past, essentially. So she's like, yeah, a civil war that started when the little stupid princess had to go and betray her family. And she's like, I see. And he's like, oh, don't look so bad. I'm going to show you something fun. We cut over to the two guys that work with Urza's crew. I know they mentioned their names in a couple seconds. I'm not going to learn them on the principle of it. They show up.
You won't ever need to know them again. Yeah. Let's be real.
They like walk through a door and Urza's like, no, don't do it. And like, it's very funny to me in this space series that basically the dude just hung like a neck height string up and the one dude just walks through it and basically like fucking slits his own throat and dies. And then Jesse pops up behind the other dude and shoots him in the head. And that guy with his last magic forms like an ice crystal and then shoots it through Jesse. And all three of these dudes died in like a second. And that's the scene that Urza has stumbled upon at the end of the last chapter. And like, again.
And then she goes, I'm free.
She's like, enough of this. Ha!
Oh man, Elsie, you got free just in time to make a difference.
And I would like, now, I mean, I guess there's still the potential. He could still be alive. But I really do love the idea that Jesse died before he could resolve the plot line of more like we touch upon it.
Quinn, what are you talking about? That still has consequences. Come on.
So Urza is watching all of her dead friends, basically, and Jesse, and she just keeps thinking, all my friends, all my family, they all keep going away. You know, thinks back to her mother and father, and she's like, why is it that death follows me everywhere? Am I cursed?
We also get more backstory on her crew than we've ever gotten before, because one of them goes, I used to be a firefighter, but stuff happened, and,
I
well...
think we knew that before. I think we knew he
Oh,
was
never mind.
I think the one detail we knew about that guy that looks kind of like Gray was that he was a firefighter, and I feel like the other guy was like a policeman or something. Like they both had like jobs in like the light speed rescue adjacent fucking professions. He was a lifeguard or whatever other fucking professions those guys had.
That's why Elsie's ship looks like a train Megazord.
So we cut over to Rebecca, who's talking to Homura, who's like, look, I dropped off all the mom tubes, but I can't get back to you guys. Like, there's too many dragons right now. So I'm going to be distracted with that. She goes, she's fighting some dragons. Boom, Justice shows up. He's like, I'm going to fight you, Acnoelia. And Homura's like, hey, I recognize you. We're allies. My name's Homura. I will assist you. And Justice is like, Homura, he remembers Jesse's lie. And he's like, oh, no, I can't. And like, we don't know what happens there. He just says, Homura. And she's like, we must stop the dragons. And we cut over to Urza. And then
just scintillating dialogue. Yeah. Just amazing dialogue.
We cut over to Rebecca. And she's like, I don't know why, but I have a really bad feeling about all this. I hope this won't be another of like the 7 fake outs this arc has had.
Yeah, really.
And then end the chapter with Hermit like basically kicking down a door. She didn't, but the way her face is drawn in the last panel is so much more aggressive than we've ever seen her before. So in my mind, she was like, doors are too slow, and she just ripped her way straight through it. Like she is fucking cooking on like 4 monsters right now. And she's like, I need Elsie's medical records from 18 years ago. I need to see them right now. So we're going to presumably get something about Elsie. Probably not that she's the super evil bad guy that from all this, but maybe she's also been manipulated by it or something along those lines. We'll see.
The way that scene unfolded was about as dumb as we predicted last week when we got that scene that Elsie had stumbled across. So
yeah. It's very funny to me. Like, I don't know, like for all the future stuff they had, dude walked into a string. It was just like, and just died. Like,
why doesn't everyone just do that? It's clearly like the most effective means of dealing with your enemies. It's, as we just saw, more reliable than guns. Like,
well, like also,
actually, come to think of it, Jesse, why are you using fucking bullets? Just use that laser beam thing that cuts people's heads off. It's super... The guy whose head got chopped up didn't have a chance to turn around and blast you with ice the way the guy with the hole in his head did. So just use those laser things for everything.
Yeah.
You're dead now. You can't take this advice.
I will take... There's one note for I Am a Gentleman brought up that it might have been a laser tripwire, which I guess makes... more sense? Question. I guess it explains how like they actually walked in with enough momentum to like slice their own throat because like it was something being actually fired as opposed to like walking into razor wire, which I assume you would have touched on your like unless you like ran full force into it or something like that.
I assumed it was a laser. Yes.
Yeah. I was thinking it was just a straight up wire, and I was like, yo, how funny would it have been if the other guy had walked through the door first and was like, hey, I think there's something above me. And Jesse's like, damn, fuck. And he just starts blowing people up. Because that's Jesse's MO. Something mildly goes wrong. He's just like, he's Danny DeVito, he just starts blasting.
He fails to kill either of them, and he's just like, Homura tried to seduce and kill both of you.
The other one is Komodo brought up that Herman's the hacker. Like, couldn't they just gotten up the medical records? Unless this implies that Sister keeps paper medical records for everybody. And I do like that idea. Like, I think the reason is probably like I need authorization or something for your authorization or some shit. But I do like the idea of like the one filing cabinet in Eden Zero, and she's just like. Or Elsie. That's why she takes so long. She's like, So it's like, no, different characters. And it's like, it's still taking like an hour and a half. Like, how many fucking people's records do you have on this ship?
Oh, that's also all the people I've sexually tortured. God damn it, we'll be here forever. All right. Akane-banashi time. Chapter 33, A Place of Learning. So Akane has begun her duties and her Zenza training at a Joseki, a massive entertainment hall in the city. And we get, it's this establishing stuff saying it's like, there's all sorts of different performances that take place in the theater. It's not just Rakugo, there's Manzai, there's paper theater, all sorts of different arts get put on display on the stage here. They're all different kinds of people. And we get the close of this narration is it is both the home turf of Rakugoka and a place of learning. And Akane is backstage. She's getting stuff set up so that she can tend to the needs of the performers, who all of them here are Shinuchi, well above her in ranking.
Botnik, don't you mean Shinbuchi?
Yes, General. Thank you for the.
Oh! Thunderclap, thunderclap.
Discord really doesn't like you moaning like that. It keeps on cutting it out for me.
No!
So, Akane is trying to stop from being a little, kind of starstruck because she recognizes some of the performers like from TV and stuff. And as she's looking around, she also sees just like this really big guy come through the door. He's got this very flamboyant shirt and incredibly angular face. I don't know how to emphasize this guy doesn't really so much have a chin as just his head stops being drawn at a certain point and becomes flat. But she's like getting distracted by like there's just all these people around here, and Asagao, the head Zenza, kind of gets in her case and says like, hey, you gotta stop gawking at everyone who comes through here. The masters come and go on a regular basis, and you just gotta get used to it and just do your job. Come on, next act ending, get out there, go flip the cushion, go. But as Akane is heading out, the next performer that is going to go on says, could you place the cushion 80 centimeters from the mic? And Akane says, okay. And she goes out and she's thinking to herself as she's doing her job, like, yeah, I'm not just working here as a regular employee. I've got to learn each master's little rules. And she's catching on to this stuff really quickly. She is, she's paying attention to the different stuff that all of the different performers like to do. She's doing Kibataraki. She gets the different performers' drinks right and stuff. But every time she takes even just a small moment to kind of like pat herself on the back, Asagao's there and is like, keep working. You got more to do. And she's clearly run around, like things are getting a bit more hectic as it gets busier and busier, and Asagao never really lets up on her, constantly pushing her to work. Finally, like the daytime shift comes to a close. Akane is exhausted, her hair is getting kind of unkempt, but she's made it. She made it through okay. And she's thinking to herself like, oh, thank God Kyojiani-san prepared me for this stuff, because I would have been in really big trouble otherwise. Then Asagao comes over to her and says, you really don't mess up a whole lot, do you? And Akane is like, what are you talking about? It's like, I'm complimenting you, you idiot. I've been watching you to see if you'd screw up, and you didn't have any big disasters, so it's been a damn good first day for you, all things considered. And Akane says like, oh, yeah, Mayani-san prepared me. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sorry I took an attitude with you, but I gotta admit, I thought a bit too highly of you.
I fucking love this moment of Akane being like, what?
Wait, what? He
and
says all these nice things.
And like walking home, being like, what the fuck does that mean?
Did he misspeak? Because that did not match at all with what he was saying to me before. So, she's, trying to think about that as, she's kind of like closing things down. Then I believe we just go on to the next day, because Akane's like clearly looks a bit fresher, and she was finishing up her shift at this point, so I think that she's picking up the next day. But she observes one of the Rakugo performers, and she hears the crowd response for him, and gets a big laugh. And she's like, oh yeah, I think that one got a big reaction. And then Karashi, right next to her, he's going by while he's got a tray with some drinks on it, and he just says aloud, "Ah, that's another way you can add a little wrinkle to that performance to get some laughs." And then Akane looks behind her over her shoulder, and she sees the other Zenza, Kenpute, immediately attends to a Shinichi who asks for a cigarette. He's like, "Oh yeah, I always make sure to bring some for you." And the Shinichi immediately takes a kind of a liking to him and says, "Oh hey, do you want to be an opener for my solo performance?" And he's like, "Oh yes, I'd be honored." And now Akane starts to realize Yasakate isn't just a place for me to just be a Zenza. It's a place that's full of life lessons and opportunities for Rakugoka. What I should really be focusing on is the stuff outside of the job. If I don't make the most of it, I'll just be doing this grunt work for nothing. Mm-hmm. And Karashi closes out the chapter, actually. He has a little conversation with Kenpute, who's really impressed with Akane's work so far, but Karashi says, hey, I wouldn't be so sure that she's just going to be a diligent little worker. I don't think she's going to play a good little girl for too long. So,
I heard, like, her face doesn't display it, but behind you can just see some mischief at work. It looks like it's a simple smile, but inside it's just like chaos, like chaos level rising.
Always be scared of Akane when she's smiling. Yes. So
good chapter. Liked it a lot.
Yeah. It was nice to have that kind of like rug pulled out from under you moment, but without it going on for too long. Like Akane catches on quick enough, and it's like, okay, right, this is a smart kid who is a quick learner. So, all right then, let's move on to Aliens Area.
But Nick, don't you mean Buron? They're all equally dead series, Nick. The ghosts come for us all. Ooh, it didn't survive to Halloween, so I kept that one in the tank.
You told me you were going to do it, too. I forgot
Buron.
God damn it. Chapter number 18. Ahimsa Antimony, I think. I'm done. I give up. I'm trying to pronounce the chapter title. The assassin guy has shown up to help Shiraku and Tatsumi is clearly surprised to see him, so good job, Shiraku, telling, your fellow officers what you're gonna do. Like, Tatsumi could have, immediately gone over to the known criminal and attempted murderer and punched him in the face and ruined your plan to have him support you. So, good job keeping him on the up and up. The guy, the assassin says, like, oh, okay, so I just have to kill this guy and then I can return to my home planet. And Shrek is like, no, don't kill him. Capture him. But apparently he does get to just get released from his prison sentence if he does this. So, okay. The horrible killer guy does a thing on his gun so that the barrel of it fades out and then fades back into existence directly behind the assassin's head, and BAM! He's blasted in the head! Or he's not, because he uses a shape memory optical weapon to create a clone of himself which catches the bullet, which admittedly is a cool way of dealing with being shot in the back of the head. I don't know why this ability isn't, nullified by the guy's nullify ability. He seems to stop just doing that now, by the way.
This is such a weird moment. It's just like, what am I watching? What's happening? Why is this going on?
It's okay. Things get a lot more sane then, because immediately the assassin charges in at the guy, and he slashes with his sword, and his clone also slashes with the sword, and they chop both the guy's ears off. Yay!
It truly like was this dude so interesting we had to pause to tell this character story because it's very clear the story is not continuing much longer.
Well, Quinn, we had to bring him back because he says it's a hackneyed moniker, but I'm not called Twin Blades for nothing. Because he had the one sword the whole time, so we needed to know why he was called Twin Blades.
That's true.
Can you imagine if we had ended this series without ever having that very crucial bit of his character revealed?
I'm not just saying it because of the season, but I would have been haunted every night thinking, why was that character called the Twin Blades? He only had one sword. Not since Sin the Silent has a moniker been so wildly incorrect, and I will not rest until I know the answer.
Shout out to Sin the Silent.
Hell yeah. R.I.P. buddy.
Forever alive in our hearts. Shiraku and Tatsumi just like very casually walk away from this fight and find a doorknob hanging in the air. Hey, look, we found the door out of this place and into the next room. Okay, Shiraku gets in contact with the outside. They get an update of stuff, whatever. They're keeping stuff contained, whatever. Oh, hey, they come across the fire guy, and he's killed someone. He's killed someone. And,
no!
So, oh man, the fire guy is here, and oh no, and Tatsumi looks at him and goes, "Who's this guy?" And Straka says, "An A3 big shot, the West Tokyo branch chief, I'd say." And West Tokyo branch chief guy says, "Have a seat, let's talk." And no, wait, so he killed a member of the group, basically, that he was a part of. All right, we didn't want to deal with him, so he's dead too. So Tatsumi is like, "You kill people, fire guy," and Fire Guy's like, "Well, I don't really want to talk with you. I want to talk with the tousled shrimp, the Shiraku guy." And Shiraku guesses like, "Your equipment must be connected to the HAZ controls." And he's like, "Yeah, it's programmed to concentrate flame. Can you guess what that means?" And Tatsumi punches him in the face and knocks him on his ass. And for a brief moment, I was like, "Oh, good. Are we just gonna like have Tatsumi just punch the guy who's trying to have his clever villain monologue moment and just beat him into submission and then arrest him and save the day that way?" No, because the guy says, undeterred with getting his face caved in around Tatsumi's super fist, "Fighting won't solve anything because it won't stop anything. Agni will still burn everything to cinders. Foreign Affairs 5, A3, and this branch. Because..." And Shiraka clarifies, like, "Wait, you mean you're gonna, like, just burn everything, including yourself?" "Yes, it'll take 10 minutes and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Talk or listen to music. Which will you choose?" And Shiraku pauses and thinks for a moment. And then sits down.
We get a wild sequence of panels too that is just the lead going like basically just scanning the room essentially, which is like an artistic choice that I cannot determine what like feeling that is meant to give this moment, because it really just looks like he's just like, "Did I drop something?" Like, I don't know what else he's looking at.
He is looking at Shiraku as he approaches and then sits down. So he's surprised that Shiraku is actually just taking this guy up on his offer to talk about this shit. So I guess, yeah, it comes down to the thing that was established early in Alien's area, which was not all situations are going to be solved through fighting. Sometimes you got to talk with people.
And because this series is ending very early, no situation will be resolved by fighting, because we didn't have time to get to those.
I have to say, though, of all the different people that have been established in this series that you're going to talk down, the guy who just randomly fires people in order to murder them by burning them alive, like, come on. Punch him in the face and arrest him. All right, that's it. I'm done with that. Blue box. chapter number 72, Spinning. Oh man, they were playing the King game last time, and Taiki was given a prompt that he had to shout out his feelings to the one he loves. Oh, how are we going to get out of this situation?
Don't you mean Tai Scream?
Okay. We started late. I don't have time to go into all of these, to react to all of these. So,
Thunderclap.
Kyo saves Taiki from this situation by going, "It's Yusa, meow," because he's talking like a cat still. And he's like, "Oh yeah, Taiki loves Yusa," because he was muttering on the bus ride over in his sleep. "Oh, Yusa, your smashes are so fast." Yeah, he loves Yusa so much that he dreams about him. And then he turns to look at Ayase and says, "Oh, for real, he's in a love triangle with you, Moria." And it's like, thanks, Kyo, for getting him out of that situation, I guess. Alright. Teacher comes in and interrupts and tells them all to go to bed.
There you go. How satisfying of a fucking cliffhanger is that? Will Taiki have to reveal his secret? Nah, teacher came in and was like, "Hey, go to bed." And they did it. Yeah, it's like, it does eventually pay off. It's like, you didn't know immediately who to say, right? And you're like, okay, I guess that is a development, but that is a grossly unsatisfying way to resolve that scene.
It's like, shut up, Kyo. Yeah, so Taiki goes to bed that night after Kyo says, "Oh, you weren't sure which girl you would have shot your feelings to, right?" And Taiki, thinks like, "Oh yeah, I still like Chinatsu, but there are times where I'd be along with Hina. It's like we get along great, and sometimes when I'm around her, my heart skips a beat." I do like that one of the moments where they're hanging out together is when they're like stretching for their gym classes, and it's like Hina's the gymnast, so her body can basically completely fold in on itself, while Taiki's like, eh. Different types of exercise. Taiki's thoughts are spinning like a cup of tea that you're mixing cream into. It's a weird visual metaphor, but it's there. Everyone's super tired the next day because they're worn out from exercising the previous day, except for Taiki, who's like, "Good morning, everyone!" And everyone's like, "Fuck you, Taiki. Shut up. No one likes you now." A bag has been left in the lobby. Whose could it be? Oh, it's Hina's. Taiki volunteers to take Hina her bag. Oh man, the bus is leaving. He's got to catch it. He catches it very quickly because he was able to shot. Yes. No tension. But he runs up to the window, gives her the bag, and then it's just like, "See ya!" And then he passes by the basketball teams who are jogging past. Tall basketball hunk is jogging right next to Chinatsu. Yes. And Taiki feels sad because, oh man, Chinatsu's got a guy friend who isn't me. Badminton practice, intense practice, then they're eating afterwards, and all the badminton guys are being dorks. There's like, "Oh, we gotta eat hard in order to train hard." And Ayame comes by and says, "Guys, can you have some table manners?" And Nishida says, "Mealtime is war." And Ayame says, "The boys' basketball team are all behaving really nicely," and they just pan over, and all the basketball people are just having like a regular, pleasant meal and are behaving themselves normally. So yeah, all the badminton boys are huge dorks, and it's good to know that.
Yes, it makes sense.
Yeah. Nishida says while looking at tall basketball hunk, "I can't stand that hunk." And Ayame says, "So you admit he's a hunk?" So, there are some things in this world that are undeniable truths.
And
That's a great answer.
A person I don't know, the text box makes it look like it's just the person behind him's like, wow, deep.
Haru says, "I actually like Matsuoka because he hooks me up with good gears." So everyone's huge dorks on the badminton team in different ways, but Haru at least is just like, yeah, he seems like a good guy, and he's good, he's got a good personality, he's good at basketball, so yeah, he seems like a cool guy.
What kind of game do you think Haryu plays that he gets gear in?
It's got to be like some sort of like what's it called with the it's got to be like a VR headset game with like it's got the wands.
Oh, like Beat Saber?
Beat Saber, yeah, because then it allows him to have like practice reaction time and stuff so he can be better at badminton because he's clearly obsessed with badminton.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And you would need to actually
cardio. That's a lot. It's a lot of cardio. Yeah. I was thinking Pokemon. He refers to Pokemon as gear. He's a real fucking sadist. He doesn't refer. He's like, I got a yellow thing. Everyone's like, a Pikachu. He's like, whatever. He just thinks them as props.
I'm gonna chop it up into Pokebits in order to feed them into my stronger Pokemon. It's like, that's not how that works. Oh.
I used my flamethrower. You mean a Charizard? Sure, whatever.
I used my gun.
Yeah.
God, I don't even know which one you could be referring to. That's terrifying. And everyone just kind of like looking over the basketball group and talking about like, Ayame says, "Oh man, they all look good together, huh?" And Taiki's trying not to let it get to him. We skip ahead to that night. Taiki goes off on his own to get like a change of clothes. He passes by Chinatsu in the halls, and they just like exchange casual greetings. And then Chinatsu grabs him by the shirt because she notices that he's got a little injury on his elbow because he fell down during all their intense training and stuff. So she says, "Yeah, you got to put an adhesive on that." And Taiki's like, "Well, I'm fine." Well, privately, he's thinking, so she's the type to call it an adhesive. Like,
who's a person in your life who's the type to call it an adhesive? Because I don't think I know.
As opposed to a bandage?
I don't know a single person, that doesn't just call it like a Band-Aid or something like that.
I've never heard anyone refer to it specifically as an adhesive, because adhesive is something that clings to something else.
I'd be like, that's glue. Stupid. And I'd slap them. They need to learn a lesson. I'm like, you're dumb.
Yeah. It's a big old Band-Aid. And she's got some in her pockets. She takes one out and she helps.
It's called a boo-boo out. How dare you?
She applies the healing salve strip onto Taiki's wounded flesh thing. And there's just this very quiet moment between them. And then when she finishes applying it, she takes out a pen and she signs it like it's a cast, basically. But instead of actually signing it, she just writes down "fight," and she draws an image of a pig, of a boar, which, because her drawing isn't fantastic, Taiki thinks is a hot water bottle, and she's like, "Oh, it's a boar," because his name is Inomata, and Ino means pig. So, yeah, she personalized it. Aww. But they have this moment together. But Chinatsu hears her friends, looking for her, so she's just like, "Oh, take care," and she heads off away from Taiki and goes and rejoins them, and in particular rejoins Matsuoka, and Taiki's just kind of left by himself to just kind of process that and what just happened.
Yes.
Yeah. Some cute little moments. Starts off on one of those, like, we knew nothing was going to come from the cliffhanger in the last chapter, but this was a very particular, like, well, that wasn't really interesting at all way to resolve it. So, that's done.
All right. That was a fine one.
Yep. Ginka and Glüna, Chapter 5.
I want to just keep going Ginka and Buna, but I can't. It was a classic. It was really a classic, and I don't know how to go up from there.
Gotta come up with something else. That's okay. The small adventuring party that they've got going are exploring a tunnel which is freaking alive because magic has been taken into it. And they're like caught up in like stomach acid within this giant tunnel, which has taken the form of a stomach. And so Ginka and Glüna, Glüna actually specifically makes this giant ice flow for them to protect them. And she starts making a plan with Ginka about how to help each other through this. She starts to inflate Ginka like they did previously so that they can make their way through the tunnels. But Anemone's like upset at the way things have unfolded to this point because she's the cool badass adventurer. And she's like, "Hey, come on, you saved me, and I'm upset about that because like I'm okay if the snowman does it, but this girl is my age, and I'm not going to let you save me because I've got too much pride for that. But before they could address that any further, the ice cracks under their feet, and a section of it with Luna and her splits off. And while that happens, Anemone passes out, and we get a terrifying flashback dream from her, because apparently her magical master was a horrible demon thing that killed his students if they didn't measure up.
Real rough. It's like a real escalation, I feel like, in this story of just like, hey, I had like a monster. Like, not like in appearance, although yes, in appearance, but like, yeah, they really just like murdered the shit. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. And he would, like, when she was upset because, you know, all of her friends were being killed and crying over them, he would pick her up and force her mouth into a smile because crying over your friends makes you too human, and as a magician, you need to smile. Anemone wakes up, and Luna is there, and they're still on a small ice platform. And it turns out that Luna has been protecting her from these weird bat creatures that have been attacking them while waiting for Anemone to wake up. And Anemone realizes, because Luna's a little bit beat up, that she must have been out for a while Luna was taking care of the melting raft and fending off attackers. And Anemone gets so upset over this, but she apologizes for them being in this situation because of her. And Luna's like, hey, it's okay. And I'm sorry that I didn't do a better job with this because I'm still an amateur at magic. So can you watch my back while I try and take care of the raft? And they start to work together more properly. And Anemone, you know, watches her back, fending off these creatures. Luna goes to work on it. And Luna says, hey, by the way, what's wrong with being saved? And Anemone opens up to her about what we saw in her flashback, and she goes into more detail about it, saying, oh yeah, my master would put students through these awful situations, and a lot of them died, and he believed the weak deserved to die. And I don't agree with that. And we see that there is this cross or sword ornament that she carries with her that one of her friends, her fellow students, gave to her, asking that she live on in their stead. And despite the fact that she doesn't agree with her master's teachings, she says, I've got to be the strongest so that I can protect everybody. I can't be so weak that I need to be saved. And even though I should be protecting people, I'm the one who ended up being saved here. And she's really upset with herself. She's starting to cry in frustration. But Luna reaches over to her and she says, hey, you saved Beretta, and right now you're saving me. So come on, let's smile together. Because when you smile, your heart grows stronger, and then things start going your way.
Bunch of weirdos on the Discord get excited.
Yeah. When you smile, when you're a girl who smiles. So
they're good people, all of them.
Oh, female friendship.
I love it too. You know, in a healthy way. I don't know what that means.
Calm down. So they get optimistic about the situation, and Anemone picks herself up, and she, you know, is like, man, I can't go against this girl's optimism, so I'm just going to roll with it, basically. And she, you know, starts to kind of pick up on her spirit, and they work together for 3 days. There's just a very sudden cut as they just keep on floating through this stomach, fending off monsters, working together, looking after each other, and floating through this stomach acid tunnel until they come across...
What do you think they spent their time doing? Because 3 days is a lot to occupy.
Anemone probably needed help maintaining her hair.
There's a lot. I feel like there's a lot that has to go into keeping that hair like that.
Yeah, because those are very stiff pigtails. A lot of very friendly, good friends hand-holding probably happens.
Very innocuous. You know, like friends do. They just hold hands and practice kissing on each other. You know, all that sort of stuff.
saying to each other how pretty the other looks, how they're so good that it feels like
exchanging each other's keys.
Yeah, it feels like any girl would be lucky to have the other and stuff, but they're just being good friends.
Just gals being pals in a very platonic way.
I'm just gonna try. How many more buttons can I push? Hang on. Anyway, the two friends who are girls, come across this group of survivors that they've been looking for, who are on more stable ground, and they the girls pick each other up and get to shore, and they're like, "Oh wow, they all survived!" And at that moment, Ginka shows up. He's taken the form of a fucking submarine with Beretta floating around inside of him. And hey, they're all reunited.
I do love how Luna has been drawn as looking just absolutely exhausted, like the bags under the eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it really does look like they're like, we have been through some fucking shit.
Yeah. It's like a very short sequence, but I mean, I do appreciate that there's no holding back on, like, yeah, these girls were floating on a hunk of ice with no food for 3 days.
Also, I love how Luna's eyes look like they're crying because he's just had to swim through stomach acid, I guess, with his eyes as windows or headlights. I don't know. He's just like, ow! Ow!
This hurts! But the chapter's not quite done yet. Luna and Anemone fucking sleep. Good for them. Now that they're on stable shore. Ginka looks...
oh no, they only have one blanket, Nick. What are they going to do?
Oh no. Use each other's... Never mind. So Ginka realized, like, how did everyone in here survive? Because, like, the first victim disappeared 2 years ago. That's a really long time to survive on your own. And the survivors exchange a look, and they turn to Ginka and say, "You're the one who saved us. What were you talking about?" And, of course, Ginka is like, "What are you talking about?" And then he hears a voice saying, "No, not you. Me." And there is a figure that looks like Ginka, except not composed of snow, but composed of, I guess,
rock, maybe, or ice. I don't know.
Or the makings of the cave itself, or something like that. And Beretta and Ginka are shocked by this, and then the entity just says, "I'm Ginka." So, yeah, the chapter did not let up. We got a character more deeply established, and then a new one introduced, as we keep on going with this idea of, the parts of Ginka have been distributed and are having effects in the world. So, yeah.
I thought it was a good chapter. It's fun.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
Quinn, I've got a puzzle for you.
You do?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to try my best.
All right. Prospective...
I give up.
Prospective picture actor premieres as pastor's powerful protege.
Oh, this is Dave Bautista, who showed up as Deacon Bautista for Reverend Devon.
That's damn right. Very well done.
He is classic. Now, Nick, I have a game for you as well. This is Nick and Quinn waste a minute of your time. I'm thinking of a professional wrestler, a singles wrestler right now. I'll let you know if it's ever a tag team or a group. You have 1 minute to guess it using yes or no answers starting right now.
Are they alive?
Yes.
Okay. Are they an active wrestler?
No.
Okay.
No.
No. Okay. Is it Sting?
No. No, he's very active. If there's a bolt, stop.
Okay. Are they involved in wrestling while being an inactive wrestler?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Is it Triple H?
No.
I need to actually cut it down. Were they active in the 90s?
No.
Okay. Were they active in the 2000s?
I think yes. I'll say yes.
Yes. Okay. Is it Jason Jordan?
No.
I was going further forward. Were they in Impact TNA?
Yes. No. Actually, I don't think they were.
No. Okay. Were they in WCW?
No.
Okay. So probably. Is this a male wrestler?
No.
Ooh. Okay. Is it Trish Stratus?
Okay. No, but that's your last. You get one more guess.
Okay. Active in the 2000s. They're involved in wrestling while not being an active performer. You hesitated on if they're active or not. Is this Molly Holly?
It is not. I was thinking of
No.
AJ Lee because she is like
Oh.
technically like a manager of that women's wrestling foundation or whatever. I don't know if she's actively participating in anything on. I don't even know if they have on screen for. I guess they just do house shows, but she is like an active part of that. And I was.
She was technically active in the.
I was like very late 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's okay. Yeah. She was completely off my radar. I should have kept on going for narrowing stuff down. So
there we go.
That was I knew what to do the first time, and this time I was like, I'm just gonna guess now. I was like, don't do that.
There's something you threw out very early, and I was like, all right, it's the Bravo guess or something like that.
All right. Yeah, I think that we're on to PPP now. So it's chapter 52, much heavier. Last time, Lucky had approached Fanta, suggesting that they, just like...
Botnik! Don't you mean Font? Ah!
Discord cut out almost all of that for me. So I just heard you go, don't you mean Font? Ah!
It did its job. It did what it needed to.
So... Fanta says in response to Lucky's proposal, hey, your piano playing makes wishes come true or something, right? He just does not seem very...
He's like, what does your bullshit thing do?
But he says, look, I entertain the audience through fantasy. That's my job. But when it comes to my own wishes, they won't be realized through any fantasy you show me. And he seems very disgusted by this idea now, and he clearly does not think Lucky's playing is not going to have any effect on me. But Lucky tries to bring around back to the point of like, I mean, but it's my fault you were separated from Mom. But Fanta says, hey, I mean, you might be familiar with the me who was a cute little kid who loved his mother, but you got to stop looking at me through that lens. That's disrespectful to the way I've lived. I've spent every day over the last 10 years reflecting on myself. There's nothing your piano playing can do for me. I mean, it's clearly wrong, but I do like this way of putting it like, oh yeah, Fanta's been separated from their mother for a long-ass time. The majority of his life. So, of course he would have the impression that she means nothing to him.
Yeah.
Reijiro starts to interject in the conversation. He starts to shout at Fanta, and Mimin immediately spins around and smashes her palms into his face to shut him up. And for a brief moment, it looks like Mimin is just like, no, we need to stay out of this. But then when she talks in the next panel, she just goes, don't yell in my ear. So it's hard to gauge. Was there a deep meaning for why she stopped this? Or was she just like, don't yell in my ear? You never tell with her. So, yeah. And Fanta says, hey, don't take it easy in this contest. You got to come at me like you're trying to kill me. And Lucky believes him. So he shouts down from the stands to the stage where Sadame has taken his spot at the piano. Hey, go ahead with the plan. So Sadame now is like, okay, well, hang on, let me think about this. How do I react to what's going on here? And he tries to process how Sorachika reacted when they told him about the funeral garb that the talented Lucky was wearing. But then he says, like, okay, but is this information from Lucky that came so quickly really reliable? I mean, I told him my theory, and it was really bossy about it, but did I understand everything correctly? Maybe I overlooked something in my reference material, and why didn't Lucky choose the Brilliant Lucky? There's all this stuff going on, and it's really difficult to have to incorporate all this stuff that's going on into La Campanella, because I've studied all of the Otogami's performances of it, and it was insane just to copy their piano fingering, and they play it all so easily. And the hardest thing is finding the emotions that are expressed in the piece. And basically, he's just kind of building up, like, this is all, going to be very tough for me. And he goes over all the research he's done, all of the interviews that the Ogami siblings have done, so that he can gain insight in what they're feeling. And he says, I combined all their feelings with similar ones I've experienced into emotional copies. I tried each one. And I kept doing that. And when I found the right feeling, the fantasy manifested. And what he starts to play is Fanta's Fantasyland as this very bizarre set of geometric shapes appears in the background, distorting everything. And he has concluded, Sadame has concluded that Fanta's performance is the easiest for him to mimic. He makes sure not to show it in his fantasy, but Fanta's natural feelings are ones that are familiar to me. Doubt towards someone you used to trust. Meanwhile, while I was thinking about this, there's some weird geometric art going on with all this stuff, and it's hypnotizing. But he's just talking about, like, oh yeah, this is about how Fanta doesn't feel trust towards his mother anymore. Yeah. And, he just talks about how, like, Fanta's broken trust was a huge shock for him. And he remembers, like, yeah, I was like that too, but Fanta's experiences are much heavier than mine. And meanwhile, while everyone is reacting to what seems to be Fanta's theme park, we just kind of see some reactions going on between some of the Ogami siblings towards it. And that's it.
I love fucking Fanta's just look of, like, you piece of shit. Like, now he looks, like, sad, but there is a moment of just, like, you son of a bitch.
You did what now?
Oh, I suck. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, that is some cool stuff. I guess we're going to have to see everybody evolve at the end of this arc, Nick. Wow.
It does seem as though a lot of people are going to be affected by all this. So,
all right, Nick, let's talk about Mashle, Magic and Muscles, Chapter 127, Lance Crown, Dot Barrett, and the Oldest Son. But before we get to any of those characters, we have to address Kaldo Gehenna, who showed up to fight Tattoo Guy, who I don't know if we ever got a name for. And
I don't know if we did either.
Spoilers, he gets defeated this chapter, so he will just be known as Tattoo Guy for right now. Kaldo Gehenna has summoned his big fire sword. Tattoo Guy runs towards him and just gets cut in half. Just he's from done. The waist up, he's boom. And Kaldo Gehenna just says, no such reality exists in which violent bullies don't get their just desserts. And then
he also says it's deserts, not desserts. It's very strange. Anyway.
Yeah, well, deserts is also an appropriate term, but yeah, just desserts is definitely how I think we more colloquially refer to it.
Especially if you're the sand user in an evil magic guild. But anyway.
Yeah. So he swings a sword, fire, cross, explosion, wild. And everyone, Levin's like, this is crazy. This is what a real divine visionary does. And hey, since you're here, can you help us turn this key? Because we can't do it on our own.
Oh, thank God. It's finally going to get resolved. They're going to be able to do this now that this super strong mage has shown up. Yeah.
Kaldo Gehenna's like, I thought that might be the case. It's all right. I'm here now. All together now. And all three of them grab it. 1, 2, 3. Oh, fuck. It didn't budge. Oh, no. Oh, no. Cut over to Mash and Lance, who have arrived in the last room. Apparently, Tattooed Animal Guy was named when he first showed up at the end of the chapter a while ago. I don't care. I'm not going to go back. We enter into this big chamber, and Lance, Dot accidentally steps on Lance's foot. And they start getting into a cartoon effect fist fight where it's just their heads popping out of a big dust cloud.
Such a good time for this to happen.
And then Doom shows up and he's just like, you fucks. To think you've made it this far, you must have defeated one of my brothers. Then perhaps you might actually put up a fight. And of course, Dot and Lance are like, shit, the brother, and this is gonna be tough. We may not be able to defeat this one. But maybe we can. I think we can. And there's a swipe, and Dot just barely dodges underneath it, and he does some, explosion magic that Doom just crushes. Just fucking crushes within his fist. And then just punches Dot. And Lance tries some of his gravity attacks. This guy just no-sells that as well. He's too strong. His strikes are swinging through the gravity. And he's like, shit, this guy's tougher than his brothers. And Doom just plants his sword, sits down these steps, and he's like, show me. I want to see your very best. So Dot,
like no one ever was.
yes, I will go the distance. And then Dot and Lance are like, hey, all right, let's do it. They activate their thirds spells, fire a big attack, zoom in, right at Doom's face. Hard cut to just Doom's bloodied sword, and the two of them defeated. They're just like Dots, face down the ground. Lance has been like crushed into a wall, and he's like, "Damn, what a shame. I may end up killing all of them without ever having to use my full strength. How about you show me what you're made of, divine visionaries?" We cut over to Mash, who is still unconscious, and then Lemon is just like, "We're done for. We're fucked."
Yeah, there's going to be like, I wonder if there's just going to be some sort of comedy twist to this whole key thing.
You've been turning it the wrong way the whole time, or
something
shit like that.
Yeah, it's going to be like, it'll just be something silly, because it does seem as though it's the case. It's like, it's not just that they're just not strong enough, unless Mash's healer is literally the only person strong enough to turn the key.
Amelia Duel shows up and is like, I put the safety on it before I left. I put the parking brake on. I'm so silly.
All right, The Elusive Samurai, Chapter 81, Bushido, 1335. You can't get anything out of that. Don't even try.
You're just going to zoom past it. I don't have a chance.
Just can't get it. There's no way you can get anything out of
Chapter that. Anyways, let's just talk about what happens in it now. Nick, come on. I'm an adult.
All right. I'm sorry. I should give you more credit. So, Kojiro is stistill engaged.
But Nick, don't you mean Boudreaux? Carry on. That's not what I have. Carry on.
Kojiro thinks that he has the advantage now because he's so much smaller and his blade is shorter, that when they're in close range, he can actually swing at full strength, as opposed to Shibukawa, who's got his massive Daikatana thing, and also he's really tired. He can't attack as well. And everyone's like, holy shit, who's this Kojiro kid who's going in on this guy? And meanwhile, the strategist is like, okay, I can't just stop and do nothing. All the troops keep on moving out. I've just got to trust in Shibukawa's strength to carry him through. Shibukawa is sensing that like he might be done for, because he realizes that he's on the ropes, but he flashes back to 2 years ago when he was a crybaby who fled the Hojo without slaying anyone, and he was dishonored as a result. And Tadayoshi came to him, and Tadayoshi said, "You use honor and mercy as excuses for cowardice." And Shibukawa was like, "I'm sorry, I'm so weak." And the Tadayoshi was like, "I will take your elder sister as my wife, and I vow to love only her. I will assign you to a post in Kamakura and arrange for your child to marry my elder brother's child." And Shibukawa's like, "Oh, why are you doing this for me?" Which is like, yeah, you know, all your family members are just commodities to be given promotions and stuff. That's right. That's cool. But also it establishes that at this moment Shibukawa is 19, so he is 21 in the time the story is taking place. Okay.
He's accomplished. I wonder. He must have like super magnified his virginity, even though they established he was a child. That's how he's so strong.
Yeah, obviously. So Tadayoshi says, like, look, you're the best warrior of the Ashikaga. I know you would never flee from battle. Now your debt to us is your honor, so do not squander it. Become rage and let it destroy our enemies. So that's pretty badass. I'll take that, yeah. In the present, Shibukawa kicks Kojiro in the fucking face and then kicks him in the stomach in order to basically knock him away so he has better distance to use his sword. And he just keeps on spinning after his kick and follows it up with this big vertical slash of his sword. And it doesn't kill Kojiro because he's just too far away from it. He's able to twist away and just lose like a plate of armor on his arm, but it freaking slices his bicep open. Nasty as hell. Kojiro quickly binds his wound with like the remnants of his sleeve. And Shibukawa was like, I'm just gonna keep on using this technique. I'll kick you away to my distance and I'll fucking kill you. And Kojiro goes, wow, this is fun! Because all of these children are psychopaths. They're crazy. I cannot stress that enough.
Wait, do he screams, right?
Who does?
The one guy, lead character.
Oh, Tokiyuki. Yeah.
But Nick, don't you mean Toku Spooky?
See, I needed to know which. Stop it! You're going to burn out your bulb.
I'm strong.
I just needed to know which one you needed to let me to set up for you. Okay.
I got an ADD distraction. I think I passed over that scene. It was like, oh, I worked so hard on Toku Spooky. I can't lose out on that. I was mentioning in the chat. I was like, I thought Asa's name was Aka, and I had Draculaka in the bag, and that didn't work. And I was like, if I lose Toku Spooky as well. I don't know.
It's okay. We've got Chainsaw Man next week. You'll get another one set up. I believe in you. All
right, let's go.
Meanwhile, sex pervert, molester, warrior, evil guy. He's got a special technique thing, which is
he's strong.
He chops his sword sheath in half, and the parts go flying in both directions and scatter the people surrounding him. And then he tries to charge in towards the women so that he can kill them all with his sword. But Fubuki jumps in the way. He's got his two swords, and also he's picked up a helmet from a fallen soldier. He uses them together to block the sword, and he just barely manages to block it without everything falling apart and getting cut in half himself. And in the opening, Mochizuki comes in and stabs the guy through the back, and he falls down going, no! And Mochizuki is like, you took us all on, so you truly were strong. You are clearly worthy of my respect, rapist guy. Any last words?
Weird pervert monster man. We've had a great fight.
But I do appreciate that this is followed up.
Sort of like when you had to shake Darby Allin's hands after a match.
Oh, God, why doesn't anyone just be like, you're a fucking weirdo, I fucking hate you. So the guy tries to get this badass boast and is like, you'll have to kill me first, and I'll shout my last words from beyond. And Mochizuki just plunges his sword through his heart. Okay, can't kill him. Yay, he's dead, presumably. Cut his head off, please. Yeah, that was the Eternal Samurai. The Elusive Samurai, rather.
The Eternal Samurai. It was good. I mean, that dude's dead, finally, so huzzah. Yeah. And the other fight's actually kind of a cool thing going on with Gojiro, so I dig it.
Yeah, agreed.
Nick, let's talk about Black Clover, page 340, an opening. And we get a little cover page of Asta that's like key art for the new movie that's coming out sometime soon.
Yeah.
So, cool stuff.
Very, very cool pencil sketch. It's nice.
So Asta has just mastered Zetten. He hasn't mastered it, but he succeeded in doing it. And it was very cool. And he, I forget this dude's name. Yoya? No, Ryuya?
Ryudo. Ryudo. Right?
Ryudo. Okay. Ryudo's just like, cool, you got the basics down, and there's nothing more than the basics though. What's that matters is being able to shove it right out of it when you want to. So, you also need to create an opening so it'll hit home. And the fastest way to get a feel for it is to fight an excerpt. You have to go around with the Chica. But wait, don't you mean Chica?
You've used the same things.
No, that one was this is Eek. They're very different. It's Chica. Okay. Come on, Nick. Come on.
All right, fine.
I am not a one trick. I know we're at 10 o'clock, Nick, but I am not a one trick pony. I have a dissertation. I have the respect of the Spookmaster General and the Spookmaster General's family.
I didn't know the Spookmaster General had a family. What a deep character with a rich backstory.
Yeah, thank you. They've worked so hard on everything they've worked. Oh, okay. We'll get into it next week when you meet the Spookmaster General's extended family. It's just going to be me in a blue hat. I'm the blue Spookmaster General. Blue, whatever. Anyway, Asta goes to train with the Chica. Chica's very strong. She's like, hey, you got to come at me seriously because if you don't, you'll die. And she's very, very strong. And they get like kind of an action sequence of Asta trying to attack her, and Chica's just too fast and is sort of dodging everything. And Ryota's just like, legends say Zetten God's name because its creator gave off enough Yojutsu to split the sky with one attack. And Chika like kicks Asta into the air. And, you know, you just like marveling, like, well, anti-magic's very tough. And she has a hard time hitting you while you're concentrating. Every once in a while, though, your attention lapses, and that's when she gets you. And guess what? That's going to be true for Lucius as well. He's got time.
There's not a lot of attention drawn to this particular moment when they're up in the air. But while they're like 100 feet up in the air, Ichika judo throws Asta back downward. It's great.
It is very cool. They're like, yeah, he may have time and soul magic. He's as strong as they come. Don't face him head on. Keep dodging him. Find that little opening and line up your biggest attack. And Asta does in that moment. He does this big strike that basically like cleaves the forest. Like we just see like the trees of like the bamboo stalks just like fly off. Chika dodges it and nails him in the stomach.
That's not what happens actually. Ichika does that attack, and Asta just barely blocks it from hurting him, and then so he blocks it, but all the trees behind him get shot. And that knocks him off of his defense, too.
You're correct. And they're like, wow, he really went strong there. And Asta's just like, crap, I'm about to black out. This is really strong, but I want to know more about that power. I'm not done yet. And she just fucking karate chops in the back of the head. And he's like, don't talk shit if you can't back it up. And they're just like, hey, you know, that's crazy. Like, this guy took the full force of your attack without blacking out. Like, there's not a lot of people in this country that can do that. So the kid has a little bit of promise, right? And she's like, don't make me laugh. And he's like, you ain't laughing. So, yeah, that's the scene.
I pray that the day is not coming when Ichika just becomes, like, another girl who has a crush on Asta. Please, like, don't let that happen. I just want her to be a pint-sized, angry little badass who won't stop punching people. Just keep her that way.
Have willed an evil into this world that I've
spoken it into existence.
I'm not a fan of it. All right.
No, I love it. I love Ichika. I love that she just won't stop beating up asses. All right, we're gonna close things out with One Piece. Chapter 1062, Adventure in the Land of Science. So last time, Vegapunk
was a girl.
Oh my god! And she showed up in a giant ass mecha to save the Thousand Sunny from these huge sea creatures. And everyone on the Straw Hat ship is just reacting to her presence. Frankie is like, holy shit, you're Vegapunk. I really respect your work. And I got so much. I spent 2 years in your lab in Baltimore. There's almost this stuff I want to show you. The boys are freaking out over the fact that there's a giant robot still. Sanji's like, oh my god, Vegapunk's hot. Thanks, Sanji.
Robin comes in like a fucking turf. She's like, hold on, I never heard you were a woman and your appearance doesn't match up. So like, I'm questioning your womanhood. Like, aw, no, not you.
Vegapunk can do whatever they want. They're the world's greatest. Vegapunk made an elephant sword, okay?
Also, to be fair, I'm fairly certain that all of the Vegapunk clones, as we'll find out, their gender is just science. That's 100%.
Yeah, probably. And Vegapunk clarifies, like, hey, okay, look, I'm not the Stella, which is the main body. I'm Punk02, Lilith, the evil! And she says, like, my research budget is stretched out, so give me all your valuables and then I'm gonna leave you alone. So Nami, of course, is the one to object to them having to hand over their riches. But she points out, like, why'd you scoop us out of the water and save us? And Vegapunk says, I did not save you. These waters are normally unreachable by ships because these things make them all sink. The sea beast weapons. And now that they all emerge from the water, they're like all wearing like goggles and hats that say punk on them and stuff. And Frankie is like, holy shit, they're incredible. Usopp instead goes, oh no, the fear's winning out this time.
I do love that moment of him being like, oh, I thought these were cool, but now I'm scared.
All of the monsters stare them down. Zoro stares back. Nami and Brook are scared.
I'm scared.
Lilith, we'll just stick with that because...
Botnik, don't you mean Killith? Gotta get that out. Go ahead.
Yeah, Lilith isn't a good demon name or anything.
Yeah.
We're just gonna call her Lilith because that's easier than saying this Vegapunk and that Vegapunk, which all get introduced very quickly.
I'm gonna promise you, as I'm referring to these characters, it's just gonna be Vegapunk 2, Vegapunk 5, right. Everything like that.
Because it's written right there.
Yeah.
Lilith gets a contact from Shaka, who is scolding her over like, come on, what are you doing plundering these people? Don't you have a scientist pride? And then when Lilith is like, shut up, she's got to have point out to her, like, these are the Straw Hats. One of them was just made an Emperor of the Sea. And at first Lilith is like, oh, then they must have all sorts of riches. And they said, no. You made a terrible mistake. You've underestimated them. Look at the swordsman on board. That's Pirate Hunter Zoro. He's got a bounty of 1.111 billion berries, and he's just been calmly hanging back the whole time because he knows he can slaughter you at an instant from the rage he's at right now. And also, there's the demon child Nico Robin there too. She will also fuck you up. That one will fuck you.
There's other strong ones on the ship though, but they're either like going through a childlike fascination or they're really horny right now. But they're also very strong. I want to note that, but they're distracted.
But I do like that Lilith is just like, oh, so the talkative jokers are just a distraction? I didn't pay close enough attention. That second part is, however, true. Zoro has immediately turned the tables on the situation and just like, we've got some demands and you're going to listen to this. So they've turned that around. Shaka the Good, who is Punk 01, says over the communication to Lilith, hey, just bring them here because I've got an interest in the crew. Meanwhile, Luffy and Bonnie and Chopper and Jinbei have all washed up in a cave in the island, and they start like going through ladders and stuff into these tunnels underneath the city, and we very suddenly get important backstory as Luffy says, oh, you've been here before. Yeah, when I was a kid, this is Bonnie. It was a normal lab back then, and I came back because depending on his answer, Vegapunk will have to die for his crimes because he turned my father into a cyborg to the point he's losing his sense of humanity and doesn't know who he is anymore. So Kuma is Bonnie's dad. Did we know that before? I don't remember that.
We knew that there was some connection because we saw Bonnie in Marijoa during the reverie, and she saw Kuma and was very upset. We didn't know if it was like, is that a parent-daughter? Is it husband-wife? Because you don't know how old. I mean, it could be Kuma was the kid for all we knew. We don't know how old Bonnie's power or how old she is herself. So I guess also, the presumption. Yes, I guess the presumption is that the age we generally see her at is the age she is supposed to be then.
Yeah, that would, I guess, match up if we also assume that Kuma's physical appearance is supposed to be how old he is.
Well, he's been a pacifista for a while too.
A long time, yeah. So Jinbei's like, yeah, that's fucked up. And then they reach the surface, and they're in Jetson Land immediately. Everything's in bubbles. What's going on? Everything's flying. There's weird monsters everywhere. And everyone's immediately like, what is going on here? Luffy just can't contain himself. He immediately is like, I'm going to go on a ride. And he goes for this weird dragon thing and catapults himself through the air with his gum abilities. The dragon thing eats him, and immediately I start getting flashbacks because everyone's like, oh no, Luffy's been eaten. And then he just flies out the back of this dragon thing's head while going, huh? And hits the wall behind it. And everyone's like, oh, that's weird. Then I like how before Bonnie was trying to tell everyone, like, guys, we're intruders. We can't get involved in all this stuff. But then she sees that there's food, and immediately she's just one of the goofballs because that's her thing. And so they immediately the three of them, Bonnie, Luffy, and Chopper, all jump towards this huge parfait that's just got ice cream cones in it the size of a person. And they all just pass through it the same way that Luffy went through the dragon thing. And everyone's like, what the hell? What is this? I can see it, but I can't grab it. What happened? Did we die at some point? But Jinbei analyzes like, oh, this must be a hologram. I mean, I've never actually seen a hologram in person before. Luffy starts to like go Gear 4 very briefly because he's so upset about there not being ice cream to eat. But they start to all realize like, okay, these are all just images. These things aren't actually here. That's why you pass through that and that and that. Jinbei also realizes, like, the sea outside was cold, but it's actually really warm here. And this large person shows up with bi-colored hair, and it's another one of the Vegapunks. And they say, like, oh, yeah, this is a tropical place, but it's a winter island, because I invented island AC to control the temperature of the island itself. No big. Luffy immediately suspects that this is just another hologram, so, to test it, he punches them, and gets freaking decked across the room and goes flying into basically a vending machine for meals. I know that there's a term for it, but I can't remember what it is exactly.
Like a replicator, basically.
Essentially. And it produces a Happy Meal with branded Vega Cola, and a burger and fries. And immediately the food-hungry people all chow down and are like, oh, this is great, it's so good. I thought it was a hologram before, but it's all real, it's awesome. And yeah, this is an automated cooking machine that Vegapunk created. And Vegapunk just kind of starts ranting about stuff like, hey, there's all these things that we have, access to. As long as there's food material, this can provide tons of different meals to any user, each prepared in under a minute. And there's all this stuff that we could do. I could do weather manipulation to save people from terrible climates and stuff. And it makes me so mad that there just aren't enough technicians to actually help the world. Because if we just spend a little money, we could just control the weather, and the world doesn't have enough tech or funding for it. And also they punch a hologram because they have light pressure gloves.
Yes, hologram punching gloves.
Yep.
It's like the power-up you get in a Metroid game that you use like once or twice, and you're just like, cool, what a fun upgrade.
They also make an image of a woman appear, and they say, like, yeah, the moment people can touch something, they believe that it's real matter. And Luffy's like, wait, so you're saying that that lady's not real? And the Vegapunk says, whether it's real or not is for you to decide. If you ask me, those words are a relic of a bygone age. So the scientist gets philosophical, basically. What is real and what isn't real. And they're like, okay, so who are you then? And they introduce themselves as a humble genius scientist for hire, Dr. Vegapunk.
Hey, it's like Astro Boy, kind
of. Yeah, the boots definitely. Yeah. And their name is Atlas, specifically. And Bonnie knows, like, wait a minute, this isn't Vegapunk, what the hell? They're Chopper and Luffy are shocked because even they know the name Vegapunk. We cut over to the new world, and hey, it's CP0 meeting for something. Kaku and Lucci and Stussy is her name.
Botnik! Don't you mean Boosie? It happened! We got him! We got him!
Discord's going crazy right now. I can't understand a thing you're saying. You're yelling too much. Yeah, Bucci showed up in a Halloween chapter. Congratulations, Quinn.
Very excited.
So, Kaku's got to break this down for Lucci and for us to say, it's like, all right, so there's only one Vegapunk, but he's such a genius. This is my voice for Kaku.
I was gonna say this. Kaku's. He's like, hey, I'm just a normal guy from Staten Island. What are you doing?
But I gotta tell you about this fucking guy, Vegapunk. There's only one of him, but he's such a fucking genius.
I hate them.
Yeah, I don't have enough time to do any of that shit. He's short-handed. So he thought, why not make some more hands? And he split himself into 6 different mashmooks. So
he split himself into 6 gabagools, that guy.
So there are a total of 6 satellites who are all Dr. Vegapunk together. So this indicates that there is no longer a core Vegapunk, just the 6 satellites. The 3 that we've been introduced to so far, and then there's also 3 more, and each of them has a number, their own name, and their own title. Good, evil, thinker, wisdom, violence, and greed.
Nick, these are all important things you need to do science. You need a little violence and greed in that. I guess you could say greed for like, because some people were like, I don't understand how evil is. I was like, unfortunately, a lot of science has been progressed for the sake of evil. And I guess greed, you could say a lot of advancements have happened because of capitalism, question mark. But violence is definitely an interesting one. I guess nuclear reactor or nuclear bombs. I don't know. It's a strange thing, yeah.
Yeah, there seem to be also a lot of there seem to also be a lot of references to like famous scientific minds and such within their names. One of them is named Edison. One of them is named Pythagoras. I'm not familiar with.
Fucking hate Pythagoras. I'm gonna hate Pythagoras so fucking much.
Pythagorean theorem. I think when I was. Oh, never mind. I'm thinking something else.
A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
You know, that factored into actually a essay I had to write that I wrote in high school because I did a proof on that. Guys, I don't know if you know this about me. I know that I keep up this facade of being this, you know, kind of cool, worldly person, but I am just a giant fucking nerd.
Wait, what?
I'm sorry to disappoint you all.
Nick, what? You're the cool one on the show. You can't do this.
I did a whole thing that had to do with proving that the square root of 2 is irrational. Pythagoras' theorem was one of the methods I used in order to prove it, because then I had to do a sub-proof, which was that if the 2 amounts on a isosceles right triangle, if they're never mind. I can't go to the whole thing. It took me like 4,000 words to write out and prove it. So anyway, so Lucci is like, I don't give a shit about any of this stuff. I don't care about what this guy did and his satellite pies and stuff. All I know is we're supposed to return this giant thing to the Egghead and then eliminate all the Vegapunks. So they're going to return Kuma to Egghead, eliminate the Vegapunks, and Kaka says, and also we have to be careful with the lab because it's full of very valuable stuff. And Lucci's like, I don't get this. They want us to eliminate the most useful man in the world. And does this have anything to do with what happened in Lulusia the other day? Yes. Ooh. But, so that's about it.
Yes. I do want to specify it is not Kuma themselves. It is the Seraphim version of Kuma. I believe the regular version of Kuma, I believe, was liberated by the revolutionaries. I think, if I'm recalling correctly.
Well, because that Kuma is with the Revolutionary Army now, so. Yeah.
But that's a Seraphim. This is a really kind of cool ending. I've heard some people differently kind of theorize where they think Lucci is going to play in all of this, and based on him kind of, I guess he doesn't really question Lusa, but he does bring it up. I air to think that he might end up being like an anti-hero to this arc or something like that. I'm very curious. I'm super excited to see Lucci like involved in the story again, to see what kind of differences have happened to this character, since that it's super exciting. And I think this is all like a lot of really cool stuff going on.
It would be a cool development for Lucci, who was I think probably the earliest character to have that note of you can't go against the world government because they're too fucking strong, and he, look, I'm outclassing you, and I'm just one part of this whole thing. For him to be a guy that questions what they're doing and what orders they're taking and stuff like that. Maybe he won't completely turn on it, but even just the note of like he's at least thinking about the stuff that they're being made to do is a nice note.
Yeah.
So. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Weekly Manga Recap. Let's wrap up by naming our favorites for this week. Favorite chapter and MVP.
Sure, I'm going to do mine real quick and say that my favorite chapter, I think, is One Piece. I think there was a lot of really cool little details in it that made it very fun, and that Juez was my character of the week. because she died.
I mean, I get that. I get what you mean, yes. I am going to go for... Let me just do a quick review real quick. I'm going to go for Undead Unluck for my chapter of the week. And I'm going to go with Ichika as my character. The more that she sticks around and just keeps on just punching stuff really angrily, the more I like her. So,
the audience, by the way, picked Undead Unluck and Juez as their 1-2 punch for best series this week.
Absolutely, yeah. Great final moments for her, or at least this iteration of her. So,
yes.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap this week. We want to thank you for joining us. I'm sorry for the late start. Just some came up right before we were going to record, but here we are now. We got through it. Thank you for sticking around. And we will be back next week with more. We start the show here on twitch.tv/RoloT starting around 7:30 usually Eastern time, but you can stay updated when the show is going live by following us on social media, WMR Podcast, RoloT, Nick F. Time, and by joining the Discord server. The Discord server has a wonderful community that has bi-weekly game nights, discussions about chapters as they come out, and the recommendation that we have taken. And also you can use it to access the Google Doc that is maintained by Ninja X3i, which keeps track of all sorts of helpful statistics associated with the show, voting on supplemental rewards and favorite moments from the history of the show, and also just like all the recommendations we've taken. And you can make your own recommendation there as well if you'd like to.
Yes.
We would like to thank everyone who supports us over on patreon.com/weekly manga recap, where you can become a contributor, and we will be happily sharing more stuff for you guys, bonus content for you to enjoy. We also want to give special thanks to Wednesday Del Cheddar and Milo Jack Stillitz for creating the opening sequence of the video version of Weekly Manga Recap, which you can see on youtube.com/weekly manga recap. And you can also check out the audio version on everywhere that audio podcasts can be listened to, generally speaking. We're on Spotify, and we're on iTunes, and you can find everything on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. We would also like to thank Steve Mann, our tile card artist. You can check out his work on his own Twitter, twitter.com/SteveMannArt, and pretty much anywhere that boobs are allowed to be drawn on the internet.
Yes.
And recommendation. What spooky series will we be taking on next time, Gwen?
Well,
sorry, Spookmaster General.
Yes, please. Pronouns are boo girl ghoul. So I want to get that out there. Look, this is a very important thing. With horror, you get the scary, and sometimes you want a little comedy in there. So we're gonna be taking a look at a horror comedy, and I think we might be interested because it's going to be written by somebody we really liked last year. This is the follow-up series from the author of Alice in Borderland called Zom 100. I believe that's how it's translated here, Zombie 100. It's basically a bucket list a guy tries to do after the zombie apocalypse starts. I'm going to cut it off at the heel, though, because I have read at least the first volume. It is also depressing. It is a comedy, but it is dark. So I need to stress that. So like people don't go in just being like, I can't wait for yucks a minute as I read this. It's gonna be bad. So good stuff.
I can't imagine the author of Alice in Borderland drawing anything depressing.
Now,
so
I will also point out it is not drawn by that author. It is a different artist.
Writing anything depressing.
There you go. There you go. That's it. That's gonna do it.
All right.
Now, Nick, should also note, like, getting towards the end of the year. Do you think a special guest might show up this year?
I mean, I guess.
Remember last year we had Code show up, which was pretty cool, and like the year before that, Thor showed up with his hammer.
Cool. Yeah.
I wonder if anyone's gonna show up this year.
I can only guess.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool, unless
Okay.
stuff doesn't show up, in which case it's going to be general.
unless certain costume parts don't arrive in the mail in time.
In which case the Spookmaster General might just be here every week.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
All right, that's going to do it, everyone. Bye.